This topic, which I'm going to discuss today, it's been on my mind for a while. And I thought, it's time to discuss this one. One that doesn't get spoken about enough. And what I'm going to offer today is how we can navigate these emotions and these impacts in a way that's never been discussed before. And what I'm going to discuss today is mental health, but in a sporting background. And people talk about mental health and, it ain't we to speak and all of that stuff, but they don't discuss this area of it and how it impacts performance. And this is the chaoticness of sports, the highs and lows. From the outside, everyone wants to be a part of the sporting background, the environment, the achievements, but no one talks about the inner critic in ourselves that impacts us so much that it can impact our performance. And what this does with so many people, it's actually crazy. Because what actually happens is when a player, let's create this as rugby right now, whatever, rugby league, rugby union, whatever it is, we're going to discuss it as rugby today. Whenever someone starts in that sport, the real reason they started playing that sport is because they loved the sport. They grew up in the sport. Their family loved the sport. And they loved it. All of their friends did it, right? And when a person joins a sport, it's fun. And let's just say right now, let's just pretend that when you started playing the sport, you had no fears. You were just playing willingly, enjoying it, scoring tries, making tackles. And every time you played, you become more and more invested in the sport. And then over the years, we get into our teenager years, or we get into a stage where it starts to get serious. You start getting pressures to be selected. You have pressures of contracts as you get older, past the academy stages into first team. You're getting paid. And this is the stage right now where, for a lot of people, the enjoyment goes. It becomes too stressful. It becomes too mentally draining. And you see a lot of good players finish extremely early from these pressures if they do not master their own mindset. And now, what people don't understand is you can do all the weights that everyone does. You can do all of the strength and conditioning. You can do all the conditioning blocks on the field. But if you aren't able to master your own emotions and your mindset in the game, you will never perform at your best. Now, I'll be entirely honest about myself. I was a okay player. I wasn't the best. I had to work extremely hard. But I wasn't the best of players. And I knew I had to fight for every opportunity on that field. And that's the reality of my career. I had to fight, get injured, overcome an injury, get back into the team. And my type of game was based on just working hard, communicating, bring energy. I had some skills, I'll be honest, but I wasn't the best, and that's the truth. And I think I've done okay in my career, considering taking me around the world, playing in multiple countries, representing my country, 3 knee reconstructions, playing in the World Cup, winning a European Championship, getting contracts in England, in Australia. For someone, I if you reflected on that now and I said that's what the career you can have as a youngster, I'd snap your hand off that anyway. Could I have gone higher? Yeah, definitely. Could I have got more money? Potentially, if I was good enough. But I do believe that injuries play a massive factor, and I do believe that other constraints can play a factor in this. But this is why I'm going to discuss it today. And there's people who've played higher than me that could explain in more depth of their experiences, right? But what impacts people the most, and I see it all the time with athletes, is they do not ever play to their full potential because the fear of failure, the fear of getting dropped, the fear of contracts, the fear of pressure externally, and the biggest pressure is internally, the one they put on themselves. And you hear so many times when a player plays rugby after a game, you ever speak to most athletes after a game, how did you play? They will never tell you they were the best on the field. They never tell you they played really well. What they will tell you is the mistakes they did, what they could have done better. They're always chasing perfection. But what this actually does for a lot of players, it actually brings out the worst in you, because all you're reflecting on is the negatives in the game. And throughout your career, you're going to have a lot of negatives. But you've got to decide every time to go the path of positive. Try and find the positive out of the negatives. And what you hear a lot of people is, they're feeling the pressure of contracts. If they're on a 1-year deal, they're struggling because they've got to prove themselves all the time. And when you're proving yourself all the time, it becomes draining. You never feel like you're doing enough, and you're walking on eggshells around people trying to do that. On the other end is if you've come back for injuries, you're always chasing your tail. You're trying to A, get out of the rehab group to get fit. B, you're trying to get back into the starting team. And C, you question yourself, am I ever going to be as good as I once was, depending on the seriousness of the injury? Now, for someone who's had 3 knee reconstructions on the same knee and multiple other surgeries, but let's just stay to the knee, that inner critic in my head always told me, am I going to be good enough? And then when you put the coach's pressure on top of you, of maybe the contract you wanted wasn't good enough, or maybe the contract they've offered you is not sustainable. You've got other pressures. And then you're trying to navigate life as well on top of that and keep a smiley face because you've got people watching you. You want to make people proud, but more importantly, you want to make yourself proud. But you've got all this internal and external noises all the time. But you've got to be able to master your own mind while this is going on. Because you see the 80 minutes you see on the field for a lot of people, that's a place where they escape that. But the noise they get from Monday to the next game, if they aren't able to master that, the pressures of trying to fit in, trying to be good enough, trying to get fit, no players, 9 times out of 10 in the middle of the season, no player is 100% or going into a season 100% fit. They're always carrying niggles. And it impacts you mentally. You make a mistake on the field, then you lose on the weekend, then you're walking on it. Then you're going into training on Monday thinking, shit, the coach hasn't acknowledged me today. Oh, what's he thinking? Am I going to play this week? And this is the battle that goes on for a lot of players. It's a roller coaster from one week to the next. But again, you need to be able to control the controllables. You need to become impactful on what the basics are to you, the fundamentals. And I always find that, and I'm speaking from my own vision, my own journey of having really poor games and letting my mind get the worst of me, and I couldn't do anything right, to now at a stage in my life where I want to give back and teach people that you are able to reach your potential, but this is how you're going to do it. So I always found whenever it got to a game, if you ever made mistakes, instead of dwelling on it, because you speak to a lot of people, if they make a mistake, high chances are that mistake happened and they're still dwelling on it for the next 5 to 10 minutes in that game. Imagine that, 5 to 10 minutes, and still dwelling on that missed pass or that drop ball or that missed tackle or whatever it is. They're still dwelling on that, and it's 10 minutes gone into the game. So much more can happen in that 10 minutes. But you've got to be able to let go of that thought and move on to the next. And I always found myself telling myself in those moments from my own experiences of it, letting it get the worst of me, is I have to tell myself next job. I always used to say to myself in those moments, if something bad was happening, if I was making a mistake, I had to tell myself next job. And that next job didn't have to be, I have to try harder, I have to make a big hit, or I have to try and score a try, or I have to try and throw a miracle pass. Remove that out of your mind for that moment right now. If it's impacting your confidence, the next thing that you should do is do a really basic maneuver. Try and get your hands on the ball and just take a carry. Try and get your hands on the ball and make a pass. Communicate. Bring energy. Be a support player. Make the next tackle. Whatever it is. Do not try and go above and beyond to try and mask that mistake, because the high chances is when you do that, you double down and make another mistake, and then you're in a hole. The key way of overcoming that is just really getting the basics right and just doing that extremely well. And you'll build confidence in repetition of that. Once you build confidence in that on the game, in the moment, that's when you can start to go and grow again in the next stage. There's nothing worse than trying to having a mistake and trying to make up with it by doing something above and beyond and making another mistake. You're just chasing your tail. And that's when you're in your head. And that's when you're in survival mode and not growing as a player. But throughout your career, you're going to have these stages happen to you where from a young age you started of just wanting to play freely until you put yourself in a box of your own torment in your head to play in a position of safety instead of expressing yourself. So my thought patterns and experiences I'm trying to tell you, if you do get in your own head playing sports, that's one area you can do it, is just build up the basics again. I always found as well, depending on what position you're on the field, and if you are someone like me who has an overactive mind, some people are blessed to get to a game, have jokes and have a laugh, and they get on the game and play freely and nothing really bothers them. Those guys, amazing, good on you, but not for me. If you're like me, where you had to prepare yourself, you wanted to get into a good flow state, you wanted to get in a good headspace, you have to do these things and implement these things before a game. I was just trying to tell myself, when I get out to today, just focus on 3 things. If that's a pass, if that's bringing communication, if that's bringing energy, just get that involvement in the warm-up. And then I used to just focus on that in the game, and then I could elaborate and grow. But that was always my key areas. Just go to those points. And then it's always going back to that, having that level of awareness when you do go through these moments, because the high chances are you're going to have poor games. That's the way it is. But you're going to have really good games too, but you have to be able to manage these emotions throughout the week. So when it comes to, on the Monday or Tuesday, whatever it is, when you see the video, or you're with a coach and you're trying to see where you're standing with him, it's trying to navigate. If they've won on the weekend or if you've lost on the weekend, he's dealing with his own world of emotions. And the squad, if someone doesn't give you that eye contact or that same energy that they did from on that day to the last week, it can't always connect it to what you've done, what mistakes you did in that weekend. They have enough going on because of the loss, the coach does. What you can control is what you do on that day. If that's in the gym, if that's on the field, if that's with a team, always just try and put your best foot forward. And the best way of doing that is just doing the basics really well. And then you can elaborate. Like, again, it's just really every time you go through these little inner critic voices in your head, it's really going back to the basics and bringing awareness to that. Or even start journaling these thoughts, what's going on. Once you start journaling these thoughts, you realize your brain creates a lot of these scenarios in sports. If there's a fear of a contract, if it's fear of an injury, you're trying to get back into the team, or whatever it is going on. You start journaling these thoughts out, you realize you're creating a lot of these fears, and then you can go back to what's working for you. But for a lot of people out there, they are struggling with these areas, and you see a player not ever live up to his potential because he cannot control his own mindset on the field, so he plays it safe. Be someone who expresses himself. A career goes so quick. If you're coming to the later end of your 20s or into your 30s, you haven't got many years left. Or you might have one injury. You might be one injury away from not playing again. I'd love to think that you get to a stage of your life where you're comfortable with yourself, that you can push on, you can really give yourself the best opportunity and really express yourself on the field, what you think you're really good at. Give that a go. And you should be at a level of awareness at that age to recognize what you're good at and what you're not so good at. When you're at that stage, really express those areas you're good at. Come off that field like going, you know what? It happened. I give it my best shot. I made mistakes. I'm trying. Then going on there, well, I played it safe the whole game. I tackled okay, but I did nothing else. Don't be that guy. Give yourself the best opportunity. And there's nothing worse than living with regrets, especially in sports. It's a short career. And just really give it everything you can. But the biggest battle you're always going to have is your own mind. Am I doing enough? Am I fit enough? Am I doing these things? You're going to have to get into a place of trying to control that. But working with clients who are played higher level than me, or working with clients lower level, that aspire to get up to that level, have confidence in yourself, but have confidence in yourself by doing the work. So going and do extras on your own, going down the field and practice your kicking or your passing. You can't expect these things to happen. But what it is going to do is going to minimize the noise of whatever you're feeling internally in a negative way. It's going to minimize that noise because you're doing the work outside of it. If you're building the repetition, your confidence is going to be up. When you go on the field, that noise is going to decrease. And once you start to execute it, that confidence goes up. And really start to sit down and recognize what your strengths are on the field. If you can start to recognize what your strengths are, you can really express those areas. I think so many people go out there willy-nilly thinking they're capable of X, Y, and Z, but A, B, and C is what they're actually good at. But I just see it all the time with so many players that they're struggling with injuries, comebacks, contracts, selection. But if you can start to A, journal your thoughts, B, start to implement these habits outside of the game, and C, start to recognize what your really strong strengths are and really delve into that, you're going to really start to decrease that noise. And what happens now is, instead of you getting to a stage of going, I don't enjoy the sport anymore, you go, you know what, I'm coming to the back end of my career and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm having fun. Because we want you to get back to that person as a kid who joined the sport, who just had fun out there. And if you can get to that stage, then, and you're doing that in your adult era, you're really going to enjoy rugby again. You're going to really enjoy whatever sport it is. Another one that doesn't get discussed is pressure, family pressure. And you see this so much with kids coming through the academies and into first team, is the pressure of their family. Now, your family's pressure can be hard on you without even the word being said, because your family might tell you, you want to make them proud, but you feel this pressure without them saying anything. Sometimes you might come off a field and you just know. Or you might finish a game, you think you played pretty well, but your mum or your dad, or whatever it is, they're like, oh, you did good, but you made a mistake there, you made a mistake there. Try and learn to have something called grace. Have grace in those periods to go, you know what, they just mean well, they want me to do well, but they're not trying to put that pressure on you. They're just proud of you, but they just want to see you do better. But if you can take yourself out of that bubble and know what you did well and still perform and still recognize they just care, I can remove the emotion from this, it's going to be a lot easier for you. You can see a lot of kids give up because of the pressure of their parents. And if you're a parent listening to this right now, try and recognize the positives in your son or daughter in the game. And if it was just one or two mistakes, I understand it. It's how you deliver that, how you communicate that. But if your son or daughter's had a shocking game, they know they've had a shocking game, that you don't need to tell them that. So there's two aspects of this right now where I'm talking about the son or the daughter and the parent. Communication, delivering it. And the other fact is, don't live through your children. Let your children play. Let them enjoy it. You've had your chance. But it all comes down to the biggest one is care. You care a lot, and you want them to do well. So if I could take anything from this episode right now with the aspect of the stress of being in sports, is A, simplify 3 areas before you go onto the field of what you're going to focus on. If that's pass, tackle, and communicate, or if it might be bring energy, support play, or tackle, whatever it is, focus on that, and you'll start to build enough confidence on the field then that you can start to elaborate. If mistakes happen, tell yourself next job, and then go back to the fundamentals of those 3 pillars we've just discussed. The next one after that then is what you can control. If you're coming back from injuries, if you're struggling on a 1-year contract at the moment, start to journal your thoughts out, what your fears are, and you'll start to recognize you create a lot of your own fears, and then you can tell yourself what's true and what's not true. And then start to recognize, have a level of awareness with parents, level of awareness of external factors and what you can control in these situations. I'm just saying these from my own experiences of parents who love me but sometimes pressed me too hard and put that pressure on me, or overcoming injuries and trying to chase for contracts, get back into a team, trying to find the enjoyment when I wanted to quit. I returned to rugby league after 4 years out and went to a World Cup because I needed that break, because the mental toll it was taking on me. So there's so many avenues to this right now, but trust me right now, find fun in this. You haven't got a long career. Find the enjoyment in it.